All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Let us begin. A beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Chaf Dalid. We are picking up on Chaf Gimel Amud Beis 23b, and we are picking up Tani Chada, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 lines up from the bottom. Baruch Hashem, to thank all of our Shir sponsors, to thank our Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Shvat, Ed and Faith Wolf, for dedicating all of the Shiurim and Drushos this month in memory of Faith's mother, Nessa Bas Velvel, Zechron Levrach. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an Aliyah and the family a Nechama. To thank our sponsors for the week of learning, the Weiss Sport children in memory of their grandmother, Shena Chana Bas Harav Yaakov Yitzchak Halevi Zichron Lebracha, and Jack Bennett in memory of his grandfather, Rafael Beniashvili. Did I correct? Hashem, we hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an Aliyah and the family's a Nechama, and we welcome Jack's father to the shir this morning as well. Baruch haba, welcome. We'll see with that, let us begin. So we have an interesting case here. Tana Chada, Tzor Adam Tfilav in Ma'osav Ba'afar Kususo, V'tanya Idach Lo Yatzer. Jabot say one Brisa says as follows: that a person can wrap up his tefillin with his money, Ba'afar Kususo. Now, if you look at Rashi, Afar Kususo, Rashi says over here, 5 lines up from the bottom, Afar Kususo, Sudar Shel Rosh. This refers literally again to a scarf worn around the head, like a turban. Now, the truth is, Rashi and Chavdal Ramad Aleph, because it's going to come up again, Rashi and Chavdal Ramad Aleph finds that the way their turban used to work was as follows. They would have a turban obviously wrapped around their head, but there would be 2 pieces of material that would come down the sides. So the image over here is wrapping up your tefillin and your money in this turban together. So one Brisa says that you're allowed to do it. One Brisa says that you're not allowed to do it. To which the Gemara says it's not a contradiction. Lo kashya, hadda azamne, hadda lo azmane. So we'll say, the Gemara says it depends. If you went ahead, now we'll say the truth is, just to illustrate over here, in this case, you're not actually wearing the turban. You're utilizing the turban now to wrap up your money and to wrap up your tefillin. So one Brisa says that you can do this. One Brisa says that you can't do this. To which the Gemara says it's not a contradiction. Everything depends. Were you miyache? Did you go ahead and particularly set aside this turban to be used to wrap up your tefillin or not? If you used your turban, if you set it aside to wrap up your tefillin, then halacha l'maaseh, it cannot be used for something else. However, if you have not gone ahead and set aside that turban for the use of tefillin, then you can use it even interchangeably for tefillin and for money. We'll say this is introducing us to the concept, the Amr of Chista, Hai Sujud the Tefillin, the Azmanei Lemeitzar Beit Tefillin, Tsar Beit Tefillin, Asur Lemeitzar Babshiti, Azmanei Velo Tsar Beit Velo Azmanei, Shar Lemeitzar Beit Zuzi. Because Rav Chista said that if you have a particular sudra, you have a particular turban, but again, to be clear, in this case, you're not utilizing it as a turban, but instead, what did you do? If you went ahead and Azmanei, you set it aside to be used to wrap up your tefillin. In other words, you set it aside to be used as a tefillin bag. So once you go ahead and you use it for the first time for tefillin, you're not allowed to use it for something else. For example, for money. However, if you set it aside, you designated it, that's what I'm looking for. If you designated it for tefillin, but you did not actually put tefillin in there, or you went ahead and you put tefillin in there, but you did not designate it, then ultimately, again, you are permitted to use it for money. So we'll say, so this gets into the very interesting discussion about what happens when you use something as a tefillin bag. So do we say that once you use it as a tefillin bag, it cannot be used for something mundane or not? So Rav Chista is of the opinion as follows. If you designated it as a tefillin bag, and then you subsequently used it for tefillin, you may not use it for something else. However, if you used it for tefillin, but did not designate it for that purpose, or you designated but have not used it yet, you can use it for something else. Or in other words, according to Rav Chista, the only time that the bag becomes actively designated for tefillin is if A, there was a designation, and B, there was use. So just so you can imagine this, you have a tefillin bag, right? It's a very nice tefillin bag. You decide one day, somebody gives you a gift, or gives you a gift of another tefillin bag. You say, you know what, I have a great use for this. It's a nice embroidered lunch bag. I'm going to use it as my lunch bag. It already has my name on it. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. No one's going to get it confused with their lunch when I put it in the fridge, right? No one's going to take the velvet bag with the name on it, right, for their lunch. It's a great idea. So Rabbi say, can I do that or not? So Rav Chisda will say, it depends. If ultimately, again, you designated that bag as a tefillin bag and you've used it for tefillin, you cannot repurpose it for something else. But halacha l'maisa, if it's been designated but not used, or used but never formally designated, then einachinami, you could repurpose it for something else. Ula Abaye damar azmana milsihi. But I will say that's according to Rav Chisda. Abaye, on the other hand, has a different opinion, and Abaye says that halacha l'maisa, designation is enough. Once you designate something for a particular purpose, then halacha l'maisa, that is enough. Ula Abaye damar azmana milsihi. Azmine afagav delot sarbe. If you went ahead and you designated it, even if you did not actively put the tefillin in there, I azmine aser, I lo azmine lo. So we'll say halacha according to Abaye, ultimately hazmana milsa, designation is significant, and therefore designating the item for use for tefillin is enough, even if one hasn't actively used it for tefillin. So we'll say, so that's just interesting. So just interesting Lemaisa discussion. Now it happens to be that the Shulchan Aruch paskins like Rav Chisda, and therefore again, in order for something to be designated, let's say for example in this case as a tefillin bag, the two steps are required: hazmana, designation, and active use for that particular purpose. But if you have one without the other, you could decide to repurpose the tefillin bag ultimately for something else. So we'll say, interesting shaila. Can I go ahead and put my tefillin underneath my head? They're both saying, now what is this talking about? Look at the last Rashi, or I should say Rashi on the last line. But just to appreciate what's happening over here. I want to safeguard my tefillin. That's what's driving this discussion. I want to safeguard my tefillin. So I have a great chap. I'm going to put my tefillin under my pillow. That way, again, it's safeguarded. The problem, of course, is the tefillin is under my pillow. So the Gemara says, if you notice, Tachas margalos lo kami barili, shenai b'hamina bizayom. Obviously, the Gemara doesn't ask if I could put my tefillin underneath my feet, because that, of course, again, is considered to be a degradation to the tefillin. Ki kami baili. So what's the shaila? Tachas merashos of mine. Can I put my tefillin underneath my pillow, under my head? Or I should really say, I shouldn't get the pillow yet. It is under my head. Can I put my tefillin under my head when I go to sleep at night? Samalei Haki Amar Shmuel, mutter. Shmuel said, yes, it's absolutely mutter. Afilo ishto imo. Even if one is sleeping in the same bed as his wife. Now, both say, what does that mean? So what Shmuel's adding over here is as follows. Not only is it permitted, but what? If one's sleeping in the same bed as their wife, it's possible they're going to have relations. Even if there's the possibility of relations, ultimately, again, one is still permitted to keep his tefillin underneath his head. So we'll say, just again, so you understand what's driving this. This is not someone who's looking to add more kedusha into his life, and therefore has decided to sleep with tefillin under his head. The motivation of this is the safety, security, tefillin. So remember, again, this goes back to yesterday's discussion, where we've already seen that what? There's a little bit of room to compromise what we'll call the cover of the tefillin for the sake of what? For the sake of what? For the sake of the safety, right? This gets into the whole Beis HaKisei discussion. The ability to bring your tefillin into the bathroom. Beis HaKisei Kavua, Beis HaKisei Arai. How does this discussion even get off the ground? Because again, when it's a choice between the safety and dignity of the tefillin, the halacha allows for a little bit of a compromising of the dignity to ensure safety. So Shmuel's saying, yes, you can sleep with your tefillin underneath your head, even if your wife is with you. So meisvei lo yaniach adam tefillah tachas meraglosav mivnei shnoi b'en derech bizayon. So we learned that a person should not put their tefillin underneath their feet when they go to sleep, because this is too degrading. Aval manichan mitachas merashosav. But you could put your tefillin underneath your head when you go to sleep. But if your wife was with you, aser, then that's aser. So we'll say this brisa contradicts Shmuel, and whereas this brisa ultimately allows for tefillin to be put underneath the head, you are not permitted to put your tefillin underneath your head if your wife is with you. Hayu b'makom shegava gimel tfachim. Oh, namach gimel tfachim. But however, if there was a place, like almost like if you could imagine like a ledge by the bed, that is 3 tfachim higher or 3 tfachim lower than the bed, meaning that the tefillin is not on bed level. It's not on bed level, then mutter. Ultimately, again, this is mutter, to which the Gemara says, Tiyufta de Shmuel tiyufta. Both say this Braisa effectively refuted Shmuel. Mishnah refuted Shmuel, right? Because again, Shmuel said that you could put tefillin underneath your head, even if your wife is with you. And here it's been pretty concretely and explicitly said, you could put your tefillin underneath your head, but not if your wife is with you. So Amar Rava, this is so interesting. Amar Rava, Afagav the Tanya Tiyufta de Shmuel. So Rava says, even though we just refuted Shmuel, Hilchasa Kavase, the halacha follows Shmuel. I'll say only Jews could speak like this, right? Right? Even though we just effectively refuted Shmuel, nevertheless the halacha is like Shmuel, that you're allowed to put your tefillin underneath your head, even if your wife is with you. My taima, what's the reason? Top of Chav Dalid, Kol linturinhu tfei adif. So we'll say this is what we just said before, because whatever you can do to safeguard your tefillin, even if it results in a bit of the compromising of the dignity of the tefillin, is important to do. Take a look at Rashi. Kolin tarinu tfei adif lehu mibizyone. Kimashehu mushar al shmirasa min ha'achbarim u'min ha'ganavim tfei adif lehu mibizyone. So we'll say, so a very interesting idea. So halacha l'maisa, even though again, this results in a degradation of the tefillin, since halacha l'maisa, this allows for the safeguarding of the tefillin, you're allowed to do it. So we'll say, so here you have, so comes along Rava and said, even though we effectively refuted Shmuel, halacha l'maisa, the halacha follows him. I'm Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah qualifies this ruling. Bein karla keses shelo kineged arosh. When we speak about putting the tefillin under your head, that's not literal, but rather under your head means what? Between your pillow and your mattress. So you are not directly putting your tefillin on your head, but rather, again, the tefillin is underneath my pillow. So we'll say, so Reb Chia goes ahead and he expounds on this, and he says what you should do is, you should put the tefillin in a bag underneath your pillow, with the bulge of the bag ultimately extending outside of the pillow, which I will say effectively means what? So you're putting the tefillin in a bag, that's number one, putting it underneath the pillow, but the bulge represents the part of the bag in which the tefillin sits, have that part extend outside from the pillow, which essentially means that what? Your head is not really on top of the tefillin. So meaning your tefillin are placed underneath your pillow, because that way, again, there's some level of safeguarding. So the bag itself, or a part of the bag, is underneath the pillow, but the tefillin themselves extend outside. Bar Kafra tzayer lehu bekilsa umafik lemor shehen lebar. So Bar Kafra, will say what he would do is, if you can imagine, so it seems to be describing over here like a canopy bed. Right, so he would. So Bar Kafra had like a canopy bed. He would tie the tefillin in the curtain of the canopy, but would have the tefillin facing outwards. So the tefillin weren't facing towards the inside of the bed, but rather were facing away from the bed. So the Gemara goes like, Rav Shisha Rav Idi Manach Luhu Ashar Shifa Uparis Sudra Alayhu. So Rav Shisha Bar Idi would put his tefillin on a stool in the bedroom and would go ahead and place a shawl over the stool. So we'll say, so again, remember, we're going to get into some of these halachos, that in a bedroom, one has to be careful as to what dvarim shebekdusha, as to what holy items they have there. Both because in a bedroom, a person engages in relations. In a bedroom, a person also is obviously unclothed. So therefore, a person has to be cognizant as to what items they keep in a bedroom. So ideally, you wouldn't keep your tefillin in your bedroom. That's not the ideal placement for your tefillin. So what they would do is he would put his tefillin on a bench and cover up the tefillin. I will say, just so you understand, this comes up lamaiseh all the time, meaning mezuzahs. You know, sometimes people like to have the clear cases for their mezuzahs. But again, on a bedroom, generally we do not put clear mezuzahs, right? Even though technically speaking, you could close the door and ultimately, the idea is you don't put clear tefillin on, you don't put clear mezuzahs on bedroom doors. Amar Rav Hamnuna Breid Rav Yosef, Zimna Chada Hava Ka'inna Kamei Derava. Va'amar, supposed to listen to this. This is an incredible story. So Rav Hamnuna said, one time I was standing in front of Rava, Va'amar li, and he said to me, Rava said to me, Zil I see li tefillin. go bring me my tefillin. So we'll say this is Rav. So Rava said to Rav Hamnuna, can you please bring me my tefillin? Va'ashkechesinu ben karla kasas shelo kineged harosh. And I found Rava's tefillin was underneath his pillow, right between the pillow and the mattress, with the bulge of the bag extending outside of the pillow. V'hava yedana diyom tevila hava. And I knew that his wife went to the mikvah the night before. How exactly Rav Hamnuna knew that, I'm not sure. Could be maybe the positioning of the beds, whatever it was. He knew that his wife had gone to the mikvah the night before, and therefore again, Abba says, this is amazing. So Rav Hamnuna said, I know why Rava sent me to get his tefillin. Rava sent me into the bedroom so that I should learn halacha l'maisa. What's halacha l'maisa? Number one, that you could keep your tefillin underneath your pillow as long as you're in a bag with the bulge extending outside of the pillow. Even if what? Even if your wife is with you. And I both say, not only even if your wife was with you, but remember again, there's a mitzvah for a husband to be with his wife on the night that she goes to the mikvah, which means that again, Rava had relations that night before. So even, not only with wife with you, but even if he ends up having relations with his wife, it is still permitted to keep the tefillin there under the pillow in this type of situation. An incredible, incredible story. So we'll say, so this is quite fascinating, and these following Gemaras obviously reflecting a profoundly different societal norm of well, you'll see. So the Gemara says as follows: two people sleeping together in a bed. So we'll say, so the idea over here is Ma'u shezeh yachzer panav v'yikra kriyashma, v'zeh yachzer panav v'yikra kriyashma. So we'll say the case we're talking about is both people are unclothed. So the shaila over here is, can they both go ahead and, now obviously let's say the assumption over here that we're talking about is that halacha l'maisa, it's time to say Kriya Shema. So what's the shaila? So Shabbos says we're going to discuss, the Gemara is kind of jumping ahead a couple of steps, but halacha l'maisa we will see that one is not permitted to go ahead and recite Kriya Shema in the presence of what we'll call erva. Erva loosely translates as nakedness. But again, we'll discuss that it actually has a much more expansive definition. But the question over here is, two people are in bed together, both unclothed. So can they turn back to back? Can they turn back to back and go ahead and recite Shema? Shmuel said, Afilu ishta imo. Shmuel said yes, and this even if one is in bed with one's wife. So look at Rashi, Afilu ishta imo, sheyachzer panov, dechozman shem ponim panim kineged panim, pshitlei da'aser, di'ika hirhur nigias erva ayedei evarit hashmish. So obviously, if a man is in bed with his wife and both are unclothed and they're facing each other, can't say Kriya Shema under those circumstances. But if they turn their backs to each other, then ultimately they can say Shema. Maskif Rav Yosef, Ishto v'lomi bayacher. Are you telling me again that his wife is the Chiddush and not someone else? Adarabba, Ishto kigufo, Acher lav kigufo. I don't understand. I will say just the opposite. I would say his wife is like an extension of himself. That's why I could understand why ultimately, again, if they turn back to back, they could say Shema. But if it's someone other than his wife, why do you assume that this works? Remember, Zakasha will say first wide line Chaftal Medalif. Shnayim sheyishenim achos zeh. I'm sorry. Shayim sheim emita achos. Two people are sleeping, and I will say the assumption always is unclothed in one bed. So each one turns to the opposite way. They turn back to each other, and they're both able to recite Shema. That's one brayso. V'tanya achrisi hayoshin b'mita ubanav ubnei beiso b'tzido harei ze lo yikra kriyashma ele imkin haisa talis mafsekes beinehen. But then you have another brayso. The other brayso says that if a person is in bed, banav b'nei beiso, his children, extended mishpacha. It's a party, right? Now what happens? I will say everybody is in bed together, and I will say that again, the assumption is unclothed. So what's the halacha? You can't recite Shema. Unless, of course, there is like a talis. It doesn't literally mean like a talis like we think about it, but a sheet or a cover, kind of in between each person. Elimkin haisa talisa mafsek, or I should say, in between the person who wants to recite Kriya Shema and everyone else. Hayu. Panav ubnei beiso ktanim mutter, but if his children are young, then ultimately again it is mutter. So bishlam of Rav Yosef lo kasha. So according to Rav Yosef, I will say these two braysos did not pose a contradiction. Habi ishto haba acher. One is talking about his wife, and one is talking about someone else. El Shmuel Kasha, but according to Shmuel, how do you reconcile the two brises? Amr lecha Shmuel Rav Yosef minecha. According to Rav Yosef, does it really reconcile? V'atanya haya yoshin b'mita ubanavu b'nei beisa b'mita lo yikra kriyashma ila imkein haisa talisum afsakes b'neihen better b'ose. We have another brisa, and the brisa says that a person was sleeping in bed and he has family members in bed with him. You should not recite Shema unless, of course, there was a sheet interposing between him and everyone else. Rather, you have to say, Rabbi, that even the case of being in bed with one's wife is a machlokes tanaim lididi nami tanoihi. But according to me, it's a machlokes tanaim as well. So we'll say, the Gemara opens up this fascinating discussion about essentially what is the status of halacha lamaisa being in bed unclothed with other people, be it one's wife or other family members, and the ability to say Shema. Now, the Gemara framed this case as being understood and obvious that let's say even a husband and wife can't be facing each other at a time for to say Shema, but they can turn back to back. To which the Gemara says, Amar Mar, machzir panav v'kori kriyashma. See, the way we frame the question is, let's say, again, I will say, taking a simple case of a husband and wife in bed together, unclothed. It's time to say Shema. So what happens? They both figure, we'll just turn around. Now, I will say, now when they turn back to back, the assumption the Gemara is making is that their backs are touching. Their backs are touching. So the Gemara says, V'ha'ika agavos, there's the backside, right? The backsides which are touching. Does that not? So people say, what's the issue? The issue is the reason they can't be front to front is a concern of arousal. You can't recite Shema in that type of situation. So is there not that same concern if they're touching back to back as well? Misayeli Ravhuna Dam Ravhuna Agvos Ein Bahen Mishum Erva. So we'll say this goes going to Ravhuna. It's actually very interesting. Ravhuna holds that the backside of a person is not considered erva. It's not considered nakedness. So also we could support Rafuna in this as well. Ha'isha yosheves v'kotzela chalasa aruma. Well, this is actually a fascinating case. A woman could go ahead and sit on the ground unclothed and separate chala. Why? Because when she is sitting, she has the ability to cover her nakedness in the ground. Whereas when a woman is sitting, so the makom erva, if she's sitting in the ground, the makom erva could be covered by the ground. Avaloha ish, but obviously a man can't do this, because even if a man is sitting on the ground, the makom erva is still exposed. What's the case of Moshe? So you see from here also, now again I will say in that case, the makom erva might be covered, but her backside may not be. So you see from here that the backside is not considered to be erva. To which the Gemara says, maybe not. So we'll say, interesting enough, to look at Rashi, almost right across, Kegon shaya panah tochos, devukos umechusos bekarka, tochos mashma loshon shi'os tiach chalak she'ina boltos. So we'll say, interestingly enough, the Gemara says it could be that the case of where she's sitting in the ground is softer dirt, where essentially she sinks into the dirt. If she sinks into the dirt, not only is the erva covered, but the backside is covered as well. Amar Mar. So we'll say, so therefore again, the Gemara seems to be indicating over here that either halacha l'maisa, if the husband and wife turn back to back, either it's that even if their backs are touching, that's not called nigias erva, that's not called erva contact, or the other possibility is that they could turn back to back without their backs touching, and that's enough ultimately to allow for the recitation of Shema. Amar Mar. Im hayu banavu b'nei beis kitanim mutter. So we said before that what? If one is in bed, ultimately again with young children, in the same bed as members of his household, and they're kitanim, that it does not pose a problem of erva vis-a-vis kriyashma. Vad kama, how old is young? Amr Rav Chisda, tinokes bas shalosh shana v'yom echad, v'tinok ben tes shana v'yom echad. Rav Chisda said for a girl, 3 years old in one day, for a boy 9 years old in one day. Until these ages, there's no issues of sexuality surrounding children this young, and therefore halacha l'maisa, there's no problem to recite Shema even if you're in bed unclothed with children this age. Ike de Amri, tinokes basir alef shana v'yom echad, tinok ben 12 shana v'yom echad. Others say it's bar or bas mitzvah. Idi v'idi. Rabbi say either way. The idea is ad shadayim nachonu b'sarech tzimeach. Rabbi say either way. The issue is up until the point of physical development. The idea being that once the child begins to physically develop, then they're considered to be an adult, really almost irrespective of the age, and therefore, again, the ability to recite Kriya Shema in their presence unclothed becomes prohibited. Amrali Rav Kana Rav Ashi, Hasam Avarava, Af Agav Ditiyufta Dishmul Hilchasa Kabase Dishmul. So, we said before that even though what? Even though we effectively refuted the position of Shmuel, the halacha follows him. So the shaila, of course, is hacha mai. Rabbi say, do we say over here in this case that the halacha follows Shmuel as well? Amar le atu kula bechada machta machtinu. Did we weave the entire fabric in one time? And I was about to say, just because we said the halacha follows Shmuel over there, doesn't mean the halacha follows Shmuel over here. Hello, heicha de itmar itmar, veicha de lo itmar. When we say the halacha follows Shmuel, it follows Shmuel. But when we don't have an explicit misra that the halacha follows Shmuel, ultimately, again, we don't necessarily say that the halacha follows Shmuel. So we'll say, even though, again, Shmuel said over here that halacha lamaisa, a man could recite Shema unclothed, even if he and his wife are in bed together unclothed, as long as they're back to back. The Gemara says, just because we said that the halacha is like Shmuel before, namely, that you could sleep with tefillin under your pillow, assuming that what? They're in a bag, and the bulge of the bag extends outside of the pillow, doesn't automatically mean that the halacha follows Shmuel in this case over here. So the Gemara goes weiter. Amalir of Mari la Papa. Sear yotzi bebigdom mahu. So we'll say, what happens? A very interesting case. And what happens if you look at Rashi, Sear yotzi bigdo, sheneka bigdo v'yotze zakin atachton v'yotze min aser benekev. Now, I will say now the Gemara asks an interesting question. Now that we're getting into a discussion about erva, so the Gemara says, I will say now we've established about what erva is, that the backside is not erva. The Gemara says, what's the status of pubic hair? Does pubic hair have the status of erva? So you have to understand something. See, these conversations sound exceptionally strange to us. And I will say, but that's because at the end of the day, just our societal norms are different. Our clothing is different. The way we sleep is different. There's a lot of different things that are different. So I will say, but again, when the Gemara brings up these kashas, that's because these were contemporary situations that they ran into. So if pubic hair is visible, does that represent erva? So we'll say, so just so you understand, we're going to explicitly delve into this a bit more, but the idea is you cannot recite Kriya Shema in the presence of nakedness, quote-unquote nakedness. So the shaila is, what constitutes nakedness? So we know male genitalia, female genitalia represents nakedness. Okay, we'll say, so what about the backside of a person? Is that nakedness? Is that not nakedness? So I'll say it appears from the Gemara over here that it doesn't have the status of nakedness. Pubic hair, does that have the status of nakedness? So the Gemara says, so we'll say, Rapapa said, it's just hair. Or we'll say, so essentially, interestingly enough, so what Rapapa said is that pubic hair has no different designation than any other kind of hair, and therefore halacha lamaisa is not considered to be erva. Quite interesting. Amr Yitzchak. So we'll say, so now, this opens up a fascinating discussion, which once again is another discussion we're not going to have the time to do justice to, but in Meretz Hashem, you'll be ma'ayin it on your own. Amr Yitzchak. Tefach be'isha erva. We'll say, literally what this means is as follows. The halacha is that there are certain parts of the body that are supposed to be covered. If a woman has an uncovered part of her body that is normally covered, that is called erva. So we'll say now what we're just doing over here is we are dramatically expanding the definition ultimately of erva. Then not only does erva mean quote unquote like genitalia, but any part of the body which is normally covered, if it's uncovered, then ultimately again that's called erva. So if a woman has a tefach of her body that is uncovered on a part of the body that is normally covered, then halacha l'maisa, that's called erva. Now we'll say, now l'mai, so okay, like what's the ramifications of this? We'll say this is incredible. If you want to say it's because I'm not allowed to look at a part of a woman's body that is supposed to be covered and now is uncovered, so the Gemara says, Vaha Amarav Sheshis Lama Mana Hakasov Tachshidin Shabachutz Im Tachshidin Shebifnim. But say interestingly enough, after the war with Midyan, the Jewish people accumulated quite a good amount of spoils. So the Torah lists all of the different types of jewelry that they accumulated. Some, interestingly enough, for jewelry were ornaments that were worn outside, and some were ornaments that were worn on more intimate parts of the body. Why does the Torah go ahead and go through the whole list? Lomar lecha kala mistakel be'etzba ketana shel isha keilu mistakel makam hatoref. So I will say, this is not talking about your wife. This is talking about a man who looks at another woman, even at her small pinky, right? Even at her pinky, for the sake of deriving benefit, pleasure, from gazing at her, that is as if he's looking directly at the place of her nakedness. The idea being, Rabosai, we are not allowed to look at a woman. One is not allowed to look at a woman who is not his wife for the sake of deriving pleasure. I don't mean eye contact here. That's not what I mean. I just make eye contact with everyone. I mean, again, the sake of gazing lustfully upon a woman for the sake of deriving pleasure, even on her small pinky, right? Even just looking at her pinky for the sake of deriving pleasure, ultimately, again, is fundamentally, biblically prohibited. So the Gemara says, therefore, if you tell me, tefach bi'isha erva, if you tell me that if a woman has an uncovered part of her body that's normally covered, so we'll say, if you want to tell me that I'm not allowed to look at that part of her body, I can't look at any part of a woman's body, of someone who's not my wife, for the sake of deriving pleasure. Ella bi'ishta u'lekriyashma. We'll say, this is dramatic halacha. Rather, what is it coming to teach me? It's coming to teach me for my own wife, that if my wife is not fully clothed, and there's a part of her body that is exposed, right, that's normally covered, I can't say kriyashma in her presence. So we'll say it's an incredibly dramatic halacha that, again, for Kriyas Shema purposes, one is not permitted to go ahead and recite Shema in the presence of what we'll call erva. Now we're describing erva, expanding the definition a bit, as a part of the body that's normally covered. And not only does this obviously apply to another woman, but it also applies even to one's wife. Amrav Chista, shok bi'isha erva. Similarly, again, the thigh of a woman is erva. So we'll say again, the thigh is a part of the body that is normally covered, and therefore halacha lamaisa, if it's uncovered, is considered to be erva. So the Gemara says, Shene Emar, Gali Shok Avrinaro Suksiv Tagel Evascha V'Gam Tira Cherpascha. Amar Shmuel. So we'll say, now that we started this Gemara, we're going to quote another of these things. Kol bi'isha erva. We'll say, Kol isha. A man is not permitted to hear a woman sing, because the act of hearing a woman's voice, ultimately again, is erva as well. Shana Amar, quotes over here the pasuk from Shir Hashirim, Ki kolech arev umarech na'ava. Amar Rav Sheshes, like I said, we're not getting a chance to do a lot of these topics justice. So also, just so you understand, even though it's nothing to do with our sugya right now, once we start talking about the concept of erva, the Gemara is going through the whole list of things that represent erva. See, hearing a woman sing, ultimately again is asr because of kalisha. Amar Rav Sheshes, seyar bi'isha erva. A woman's hair is erva as well. Shene emar sarich ke'eda ha'izim. Shabbos say, what would that mean ultimately again if a woman's hair is erva? So remember, this gets into the entire discussion about hair covering. What's the nature? Again, we'll see these sugyas later on in greater depth. What is the nature of the obligation? What has to be covered? But Shabbos say, what it does tell you is something very interesting, which is that halacha lamaisa, if hair is erva, it would seem to indicate that halacha lamaisa, a man would not be permitted to recite Kriyas Shema in the presence of the uncovered hair of his wife, or for that matter, again, in the uncovered hair of any woman. Now, it happens to both sides, there is the famous Aruch HaShulchan, and the famous Aruch HaShulchan says that halacha l'maisa, since today, many people, for whatever the reason, again, we'll get into these halachas, don't necessarily observe this particular halacha, so it could be that the status of hair has fundamentally changed, and maybe hair doesn't have the same status of erba. Therefore, the Aruch HaShulchan says there may be room to say that one could actually recite Kriyas Shema in the presence of uncovered hair, which actually gets into a fascinating discussion in general about, do the definitions of erva potentially change with societal norms, which of course I will say obviously some definitions do not change, right? Some things, I want to go on record as right, some things will remain erva. And I will say, but the shaila is this definition somewhat fluid depending on societal standards? So again, we'll keep it as a topic sometime for the future. I'm Rabbi Chanina. Ani Ra'isi Rebbe, Shatal Tfilav. So we'll say, Rabbi Chanina says, switching gears, I saw Rebbe hang his tefillin. And I will say what this sounds like over here. Rashi said, no, actually, no Rashi yet. I saw Rebbe hang his tefillin. So the Gemara says, really? So the Gemara says, Meisvei, hatolet tfilav yitlu lo chayiv. So let's listen to this. So the Gemara says, somebody who hangs his tefillin, ultimately his life should be hanged. Which is another way of saying, it's not good. right? Don't hang your tefillin. So darshe chamuros amru v'hayu chayecha tluim lecha mineged zatola tefilov. So lo kash, that's not a contradiction. Habiritzu habiketzitza. Both say it's actually very interesting. So what shouldn't you do? What are you not allowed to do? You can't dangle your tefillin by the strap. So we'll say, if you can imagine for a moment, imagine you have like a peg. You have a peg. So what you're not allowed to do is hang your tefillin by the strap in a way that the box is hanging down. That's considered to be disparaging to the tefillin. But what can you do? You could hang, if let's say, I guess you have a little bit of a wider peg, what you could do is you could put the bias on the peg and allow the straps to hang down. That's okay. That's considered to be bakavadik for the tefillin. V'bayisema, loshna ritzuv loshna ketzitza aser. Others say no, either way, you can't go ahead and hang the tefillin by the bias or by the strap. Rabbi, what did Rabbi do? Bikista. Rabbi had his tefillin in a bag, and what did Rabbi do? Rabbi hung the bag from the peg. That's okay. If that's the case, what's there to say? So what would you have thought? You would have thought that maybe tefillin is not allowed to be hung, right? You can't put tefillin on a peg regardless, right? I'm going to thought I have to just put tefillin on a table, just like a sefer. Kamashma know that you can't hang the tefillin by the bias or by the ritzuas, but you can hang it by the back. Anira ECS Rebbe will say interesting case. I saw Rebbe shegiek upiek v'nis atesh v'rak. I saw Rebbe will say, now this is incredible. Rabbi Chanina saw all of this during Shmona Esrei. So I saw Rebbe shegihek. You will say gihek means he burped. He burped. Pihek means ultimately again he yawned. Right? Nisatesh sounds like it means he sneezed. We'll see what this means. Right? Virak, and he spit on the days. Umemashmish bebigdo, and he killed a louse in his clothing. All of this during Shmona Esrei. It was a long Shmona Esrei, right? The long Shmona Esrei. So we'll say he did all of it during Shmona Esrei. Avalohaya misatef. But interestingly enough, if his talus was falling off, he would not fix his talus. He would not fix his talus. They both say, if you look at Rashi, V'alohaya misatef, im nafla taliso kishu mispalo, lohaya notlo misatef shola hafsik. Apparently, again, Abba says, see, he would do all of these things. So just so you get it right. So giek means he burped. Piek means he yawned. Nisatesh, he sneezed. Rak, he spit. Memashmish, a big dog, killed a louse. But he felt that adjusting his talus would be a hefsek in the middle of Shmona Esrei. Okay, so let's analyze a little bit. Ukishumafaik, and ultimately, again, when he would yawn, what would he do? Haya maniach yado al sentero. I will say he would place his hand on his chin. I will say, why? Why? Simple etiquette. Don't yawn. No one needs to see that cavernous mouth of yours, right? So I will say, the idea being, cover your mouth when you yawn. It is disrespectful. First of all, it's disrespectful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the middle of Shmona Esrei to yawn like that, and it's also a lack of kavod abrios to yawn like that as well. A person covers their mouth when they yawn. Meisvei hamashmiya kol b'tefila harei miktani amuna. So we'll say now. Listen. So we'll say. So this really gets into a fascinating discussion. So we begin at Brisa. If a person raises their voice during Shmona Esrei, Rabbi say this is dafka during Shmona Esrei. So harei miktani amuna. Ultimately, again, such a person lacks faith. Rabbi say, why does such a person lack faith? Says Rashi, because remember, Shmona Esrei is a conversation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you raise your voice, what does it sound like? It sounds like you don't believe that God could hear your whisper. So therefore, you're talking loudly. So you lack emunah. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. So if a person goes ahead and raises his voice during davening, such a person is amongst the false prophets. So this is a person who davens very loud. So such a person is like the false prophets. This is a reference to the showdown between Eliyahu and Nevi Habal, where the Nevi Habal were screaming out. So this is a way of the false prophets to go ahead and scream out to God. Megahik umefahik hareze megasi haruach. If a person goes ahead and burps, or a person goes ahead and yawns, this is a sign of arrogance. To do this during davening is a sign of arrogance. Hamisatesh bitfilah. So Rabbi say we're going to translate this now as a person sneezes during their davening. Simin ralo. That is a bad simin that's a bad omen for their prayers. Veishomrim nikar shehu mechuar. Others say that is demonstrative of the fact that you are a disgusting person. Okay. Harak b'tfilaso. We'll define. Don't worry, we have time still. Harak b'tfilaso. If a person spits in the middle of davening, Shmona Esrei, kilu rak b'fnei hamelech. It's as if he's spitting in the presence of the king. So the Gemara says, Bishlama megahik umefayik. So it's not a contradiction. So also here the Brisa says that you're not allowed to go ahead and burp or yawn. So the Gemara says, but yet we saw before that Rebbe did it. Lo kashya, kan la'onso, kan li'ritzono. We'll say if a person intentionally does this during davening, that's when it's arrogant. If it just happens, then ultimately, again, what are you going to do? Ela misatish misatish kasha. Rabbi say, what about sneezing? Rabbi sneezed and it seemed to be okay. And here we're saying that sneezing is what? Sneezing is not good. So to which the Gemara says, lo kasha. I'm sorry. So misatish lo kasha. Kan milamala, kan milamata. One is sneezing above, one is sneezing below. Well, so what does that mean? So a sneeze, right, that comes from your mouth, that comes from, is fine. What it's referring to, that's a simin ra, is flatulence. That if a person flatulates during Shmona Esrei, that is simin ra lo, right? That is a bad simin. That is a bad simin, because also, which makes sense. A person, if that happens to a person during davening, then what? Then halacha l'maisa, there's an odor that's created, and it almost indicates as if a person's tefillah is being rejected. Dan Rabbi Zera, hamil sa'ivla li be Rav Hamnuna, v'tilka li kikuli hay tamuda. So Rav Zera said, I learned this halacha by Rav Hamnuna, and it's as important to me as the rest of the Torah that I learned. Hamis atef bish tefillah, so simin yafelo. If a person sneezes during davening, it was very interesting. A person sneezes during davening, that is a good sign. Why? Ultimately, again, if a person sneezes, we'll say it's a good omen. Why? Because they'll say when you sneeze, so there's a pressure that's released, right? There's a relief that's felt. The same way that you feel relief in this world, it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to grant you relief from above as well. But conversely, if a person flatulates during davening, that is a simin ra lo. That is a bad omen. Almost of the Gemara, almost seems to indicate almost like a rejection of prayer. Ella rak arak kasha. We'll say, what about spitting? Right? On one hand, Rebbe spit. Yet we're saying spitting is arrogance. To which the Gemara says, lo nami lo kasha. Avshak Rabbi Yehuda, Dam Rabbi Yehuda, haya omid b'tfilah v'niz damin lo rok. If a person was in the middle of davening and he felt that he had to spit, right, there was too much of an accumulation of saliva, and he felt that he had to spit, mavliya bataliso, he could absorb the additional saliva in his talus. We'll say the idea is spit into your talus and ultimately absorb it into your talus. V'im talus nahu, but ultimately again, if you like your talus, right, you have a nice talus, then what? Mavliya ba'afar kesuso. Then ultimately spit into your turban. Now, this is what we said before. The turban, remember, that you used to wear was like a head thing, but then it had pieces of material that came down the sides. So just spit it into the sides. Ravina havakaya charid Ravashi. So also Ravina was one time standing behind Ravashi. Nizdami lo rok. Ravashi had to spit. Paske la achore. And Ravashi spit behind him. Amar leilo savar mar lahad Rav Yehuda mavliya bafar kesuso. Do you not hold of what Rabbi Yehuda said, that you really shouldn't spit during Shemona Esrei, but you should spit into the turban and absorb it there? Amar le, ana anina datoi. He said, I am a fastidious person, right? I am a mifunak. So because I am a mifunak, I can't spit into my clothing, have it absorbed there, and continue concentrating. Therefore, I just spit on the ground. Hamashmiya kolu b'tfilah sarizeh miktani emuna. So as we said before, that if a person raises his voice during davening, that shows a lack of belief. That's only true if you have the ability to generate kavanah while davening silently. But if you don't have the ability to daven quietly and generate kavanah, mutter, then you are permitted to go ahead and raise your voice. But this is only true if you're davening alone. But I will say, if you're davening with the tzibor, you do have to be cognizant of your decibel level in order not to chas v'shalom compromise anyone else. All right, so we'll have to stop over here for today. Okay, we did good. I think all in all. We'll see how we're good. We'll stop here. Remember, tomorrow morning we resume normal schedule.